Iran, a land that echoes with rich history, diverse cultures, and awe-inspiring landscapes. It's a country that seldom fades from the headlines. Today, we're diving into a specific chapter of Iran's history, a tale written in oil, geography, corruption, and geopolitics. Welcome to World and Me Project with Dr. Yeva Alexanian. Please press the like button, share our videos, and subscribe to our channel for more videos. You can visit our website at www.worldandme.info, link in the description, and read articles related to our videos. Now let's dive into the intriguing history of Iran. Iran holds one of the world's most abundant reserves of oil and natural gas. These hydrocarbons are not just resources. Oil and Iran's geographical position are the architects of Iran's economic growth, nuclear program, political dynamics, and international relationships. The modern history of Iranian oil begins in the early 20th century. The first successful exploration for oil in Iran was conducted by the well-known British entrepreneur William Knox D'Arcy. In 1908, D'Arcy secured a concession from the Qajar dynasty, granting him exclusive rights to explore and extract oil in Iran. The British soon discovered oil in southwest Iran, marking the start of the Iranian oil industry. Soon after, the Anglo-Persian Oil Company was formed to manage the newfound resource. By the 1920s, oil accounted for nearly half of the country's revenues. However, the wealth generated was concentrated in the hands of Shah and his inner circle. As World War II unfolded, the struggle for control over vital resources intensified. The Nazi Germany needed reliable access to oil to fuel its ships, planes, tanks, and other vehicles. Oil fields in Iran seemed a logical solution to Germany's problem. But Germany was not the only one who was interested in Iran. From Britain's perspective, losing control of Iran could compromise Britain's ability to sustain the war effort. Britain was also worried about the pro-German sentiments in Iran. So to Britain, the solution was clear: take control of Iran. In August 1941, British and Soviet forces invaded Iran. Differences were put aside between British and Soviets in order to promote mutual interests in a region of profound strategic and economic importance. There was much celebration when British and Soviet troops met at Kazvin, in the north of the country, where they swapped stories and cigarettes. Britain and the Soviet Union solemnly pledged to safeguard the Iranian people against the difficulties of war and ensure their well-being. But the issue had little to do with the security of Iran and everything to do with commandeering its oil and infrastructure. Britain and the Soviet Union were ensuring that they could use Iran's roads, rivers, pipelines, airfields, and telegraph stations as they pleased. This was designed to prevent German expansion into Iran and then Iraq, and to enable resources to be brought through the Gulf to help the Allies. As World War II ended, a high-stakes power play between the Soviet Union and the West began. But weakened and unable to hold its ground, Britain needed support. Therefore, the United States stepped in. Iran's political and strategic significance pushed it into the spotlight of U.S. foreign policy. American strategists were convinced that the Soviets wanted complete domination of Iran, not just for its oil, but also for its naval bases and its strategic location in the heart of international air routes. The Iranian government, playing its cards carefully, awarded the oil concession in the north of the country to the United States. But oh boy, things got heated in Tehran in 1944. The Russians caught the wind of negotiations, leading to ugly scenes. The Tudeh party, with alleged support from Moscow, immediately organized protests. It seemed as though the Soviet Union was ready to use force to get its way and have the agreement between the United States and Iran cancelled. This was emphasized by Sergei Kavtaradze, Assistant Foreign Commissar, whom Stalin had sent to Tehran to warn that there would be consequences for angering the Soviet Union. Fears rose in the West. Without strong US support, Iran faced the risk of complete disintegration and absorption into the Soviet bloc. Therefore, the United States needed to take decisive actions. The Iranian government, I should mention, awarded the oil concession to the United States thanks to assurances of military support. The American ambassador made it clear the United States would, if necessary, provide military support in the event of Soviet forces entering Iran. I need to also mention that initially oil exploration in Iran was dominated by foreign interests. The early decades of 20th century saw an exploitative relationship between foreign oil companies and the Iranian state. Anglo-Persian Oil Company controlled Iran's oil industry through concession agreements that many Iranians viewed as unfair and exploitative. The majority of profits from Iran's oil went to the British. Iranians received meager royalties. These arrangements fueled discontent among Iranians. With oil prices and demand for oil rising, it was inevitable that countries that found themselves blessed with natural resources and being courted from all sides would seek to maximize their own positions. Things changed when Mohammad Mossadegh, a nationalist and charismatic leader, became Prime Minister of Iran in 1951. He championed the cause of reclaiming Iran's sovereignty over its oil resources. In a bold move, Mossadegh's government nationalized Iran's oil industry in 1951, expelling foreign oil companies, particularly Anglo-Persian Oil Company. Mossadegh's government created the National Iranian Oil Company instead. The nationalization of the oil industry was met with fierce opposition from the British government, which considered the move a threat to its economic interests. The British responded by imposing an embargo on Iranian oil, freezing Iranian assets, and mobilizing international support against Mossadegh. The United States, fearing the spread of communism and wanting to maintain stability in the region, got involved. The situation escalated in Iran, leading to economic difficulties due to the oil embargo and a sharp decline in oil revenues. The international opposition to Mossadegh grew, and in 1953, the United States and the United Kingdom orchestrated a coup d'etat called Operation Ajax to overthrow Mossadegh. So in August 1953, Mossadegh was ousted from power and Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi was reinstated as the leader of Iran. The goal was to ensure a friendly government in Iran that would be more accommodating to Western interests, including those related to oil. The Shah soon reversed the nationalization policies and reopened the country to foreign oil companies. The United States found itself in a crucial role, stepping onto the stage to safeguard Western interests in Iran. Yet, encouraging American oil giants to invest in Iran proved to be a challenge. As one senior oil executive put it, from a strictly commercial point of view, our company has no particular interest in getting involved in the Iranian oil industry. Political instability at the time, corruption, and unpredictability were few of many factors why American companies did not want to have business dealings in Iran. Even though American companies hesitated, circumstances compelled them to invest and operate in Iran. How? Well, the very oil companies asked to be instruments of US foreign policy and invest in Iran were actually being prosecuted for breaking antitrust laws by the Department of Justice. In the spring of 1954, the oil companies received formal guarantees of immunity from prosecution. Control of Iran was a matter of US national security interests, and the government was willing to end the prosecution. Shortly after the deal, one oil executive stated, and I'm quoting, "We're very cautious of the large national security interests involved. We are therefore prepared to make all reasonable efforts to help." Yet the reality was, as another executive put it, they wouldn't have entered Iran if the government hadn't really beat us on the head. While Iran maintained good relations with the international community in general and the West in particular, it enjoyed historically high oil revenues. In the 70s, Iran was producing roughly 5.9 million barrels per day, which amounted to a staggering 20% of OPEC's production. The aftermath of Yom Kippur War in 1973 and the subsequent OPEC oil embargo ushered in a golden era for Iran. The Shah and his government began to invest those historically high oil revenues. The oil revenues were used by Shah's government to fuel an ambitious transformation, infrastructure development, naval bases, nuclear power plants, and the expansion of armed forces. The private sector flourished under the strategic use of credit facilitation. However, this growth trajectory took a sharp downturn after 1976. The unrest preceding the Islamic Revolution and the devastating Iran-Iraq War of 1980-1988 cast shadows over this prosperity. From an American perspective, encouraging American oil companies was just one piece of a grand plan to uplift Iran and keep it out of Soviet Union's grasp. Concentrated efforts went into social development projects, particularly in the countryside. Post-World War II, around 3/4 of Iranians were peasants with minimal incomes and owning no land. The feudal system and the concentrated land ownership created a situation where the majority of peasants faced significant challenges. People were trapped in a world where landowners were opposed to agrarian reforms and where options were limited. Typical rates of credit to small farmers ranged from 30 to 75%, levels that were all but guaranteed to strangle economic mobility. Such high interest rates made it difficult for farmers to invest in their land, improve productivity, and escape the cycle of poverty. To address these issues, various initiatives, including microfinance schemes, were implemented. Substantial funds were invested. The Ford Foundation, the largest philanthropic organization in America, set up microfinance schemes for small farm holders. During Shah's era, social reforms in Iran changed how women were perceived. Women gained the right to vote, work outside the home, and hold positions in various professions. The Family Protection Law of 1967 granted women the right to seek divorce and improved women's rights in matters of child custody. Women's participation in the workforce increased, and they began working in various professions alongside men. Educational opportunities for women also expanded during this period. Women were even encouraged to adopt Western-style clothing, and societal attitudes towards women's dress became more permissive. Many urban women embraced Western fashion during this period. Overall, the Shah introduced legal reforms that granted women more rights. However, I should note that these social reforms were not universally accepted, and there were segments of Iranian society, including religious and conservative groups, that opposed such changes. Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi implemented a series of economic reforms during his rule in an effort to modernize and industrialize Iran. The government invested in infrastructure, education, and various economic sectors with the goal of modernizing the country and reducing its dependence on oil revenues. The United States, too, made systematic efforts to help bolster Iranian economy. Financial aid began to pour into the country. The aim was to encourage economic development in Iran, stabilize the political culture, lay the basis for reform, and provide military and technical assistance for Iran's self-defense. The United States also directed funds and made efforts to revolutionize Iranian agriculture, but the United States failed miserably. Industrial development driven by the United States transformed parts of Iran. The country started producing a wide range of manufactured commodities, including automobiles, electric appliances, telecommunication equipment, industrial machinery, rubber products, textiles, pharmaceuticals, and many, many other things. The United States also provided grants and loans to help bankroll a massive dam on the Karaj River around 40 miles northeast of Tehran. The dam was intended to upgrade the electricity and water supply to the capital city, as well as to serve as a symbol of Iran's modernization. To maintain the support of the Shah and cement his position, funds continue to pour into Iran from Washington, building a 1,500-mile highway system and providing capital to set up prestigious projects, such as the creation of national airlines. During the early 20th century, Western companies were involved in different infrastructure projects in Iran. The development of the railway system during this period was more closely tied to European companies and their expertise. During the 1970s, under the rule of Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi, significant investments were made in infrastructure projects, including the railway system. Of course, the United States also played a role in the expansion of Iran's railway system. The network expanded and efforts were made to connect different regions of the country. The principal line of the state-owned railway system ran between the Caspian Sea and the Persian Gulf. In 1971, the railway was linked through Turkey with the European system. The link stimulated trade and tourism, undercutting airfares and significantly reducing sea transportation time. Other parts of the railway system connected Iran to Asia. In other words, the Iranian railway system became a cost-efficient transport outlet for Central Asia, boosting trade and strategically positioning Iran. In the era of the Shah, Iran witnessed not only economic ambitions, but also grandiose military plans. The Shah, according to historical sources, was less concerned about the economy and more concerned, or rather obsessed, with the military. During the reign of Shah Pahlavi, the Iranian military, specifically the Imperial Iranian Armed Forces, was often regarded as one of the strongest in the Middle East and was sometimes ranked as the 5th strongest military in the world. Vast investments poured into the military. Iran's military spending skyrocketed from $293 million in 1963 to $7.3 billion less than 15 years later. As a result, the country's Air Force and Army became among the largest in the world. The funding was facilitated in part thanks to military aid and soft loans from the United States. Not to say that U.S. did not profit from such deals in turn, because much of the hardware was bought from American defense contractors. At a time when the Cold War was beginning to heat up, it was important for the United States to construct a belt of states between the Mediterranean and the Himalayas with pro-Western governments. Those countries received considerable economic, political, and military support from the United States. As long as Iran, or rather Shah Pahlavi, was a staunch ally of the United States and Western countries in general, Western nations, particularly the United States, supplied Iran with a wide range of advanced weaponry. Those included aircraft, tanks, and naval vessels. Notably, the United States supplied the Iranian Air Force with F-14 fighter jets during the 1970s. The relationship between West and Iran went beyond economic and military. In 1974, as part of a program whose name seems a bit ironic today, Atoms for Peace, an initial agreement was reached between the United States and Iran. The U.S. committed to selling 2 nuclear reactors and enriched uranium to Iran. The collaboration deepened in 1975 with a monumental $15 billion trade deal between the United States and Iran. This comprehensive agreement included provisions for Iran to purchase 8 reactors from the United States. The following year, President Ford approved a deal that allowed Iran to buy and operate a U.S.-built system with a reprocessing facility. This could allow the extraction of plutonium, a significant step toward a nuclear fuel cycle. The Shah's ambition extended beyond borders, drawing on technology, expertise, and raw materials from various Western nations. Contracts were signed with West Germany's Kraftwerk Union AG for 2 pressurized water reactors and France's Framatome for further 8 reactors. Iran's nuclear program is described in Peter Frankopan's The Silk Roads book. Peter Frankopan mentions that Shah on many occasions had openly hinted at his intentions of developing a powerful weapon. The intelligence communities were well aware of Shah's intentions. Some even warned the US policymakers that the Shah was megalomaniac and can become dangerous. But the US was willing to close an eye on all that, as long as it fit its foreign policy goals. At that time, Iran appeared to be a reliable partner and a resounding success on multiple fronts. But was everything in Iran as great as it was portrayed? As oil revenues and foreign aid flooded the country, it seemed like Iran and its people should have prospered. Well, not so fast. Despite abundant natural resources, economic hardships loomed large. Inflation and unemployment rates soared, leaving ordinary Iranians struggling to make ends meet. While the Shah's circle continued to amass wealth, economic inequality became a glaring issue, leading to growing frustration among the population. The Shah's regime was notorious for corruption and nepotism. The so-called Shah's 1,000 families became a symbol of inequality and corruption during the Shah's reign. Shah's immediate family, particularly his wife Farah Pahlavi and their associates, were accused of embezzling state funds and accumulating immense wealth at the expense of the nation. You can watch, by the way, our video on resource curse in Iran's corruption. The link is in the description. The perception of corruption within the royal family and the government institutions further eroded public trust. Economic hardships became a focal point of discontent. Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi declared himself an emperor or king of kings in 1967. He celebrated his coronation with a lavish ceremony. The coronation ceremony and the subsequent festivities were criticized for their extravagance, considering the economic disparities in the country. Total cost of these events and associated expenses was around $90 million, or in today's terms, $516 million. The extravagance of these events, coupled with economic challenges and social disparities, fueled discontent among various segments of the Iranian population and contributed to growing opposition to the Shah's rule. The Shah's regime also faced criticism for violating human rights, employing secret police, as well as for censorship and imprisonment of opposition. The Shah's secret police, Savak, consistently tortured and abused anyone opposing the Shah. Shah's authoritarian rule, suppression of political dissent, created a climate of fear and resentment among the Iranian populace. By the late 1970s, the atmosphere in Tehran became toxic. As the global supply of oil began to exceed demand, oil prices and therefore oil revenues dropped significantly. The rising cost of living and dropping income made life impossible for ordinary Iranians. Protests in Iran reflected public anger over social injustice and economic challenges. Well, of course, the Soviet Union did not stay completely out of it. Speculations arose that unusually large volumes of trading in Iranian rials on the Swiss currency market early in 1978 were the results of Soviet agents being ordered to finance supporters in Iran. The Tudeh Party, a communist left-wing party in Iran, had historical ties to the Soviet Union. The party's newsletter, Navid, was utilized by the Soviet Union to share information and sow discontent with the government. The Tudeh Party was active in supporting the revolution and played a role in mobilizing leftist elements against the Shah. New camps were set up outside the country to train Iranian dissidents in guerrilla warfare and Marxist doctrines. It was clear that Moscow was preparing to fill any void in the event of fall of the Shah. However, I should also mention that the Soviet Union was cautious toward the Iranian Revolution. While the ideologically sympathetic to leftist and revolutionary movements, the Soviets were concerned about the potential spread of Islamic fundamentalism, which could challenge their influence in the region. Nonetheless, growing dissent played into the hands of Ayatollah Khomeini, who was then exiled in Paris. Khomeini, whose elder son was probably murdered by Shah's secret police in 1977, seized control of the situation. Khomeini declared that the time had come for the Shah to step aside. The beneficiaries of good leadership should be the Iranian public and Islam, and not the Shah. His visions appealed to various factions, from left-wing revolutionaries to Islamic hardliners, and pretty much to almost all those who were outside the golden loop of Shah's gilded rewards. And so began the Iranian Revolution of 1979, leading to the establishment of the Islamic Republic of Iran and the ousting of Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi. The new regime, led by Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, took the control of the country. This revolution marked a seismic shift in US-Iran relations, leading to strained economic ties and the infamous 444-day US embassy hostage crisis. The revolution also forever changed Iran's fate, its economy, and its role in geopolitics. This was the World in Me project with Dr. Yeva Alexanian. We hope you enjoyed this video. Please press the like button, share our videos, and subscribe to our channel. See you soon.